Hello, I'm Gabriel from Lewitt. I'm here today with Mike Hillier. Hey, Mike.
Hey.
Thanks for having us.
No problem.
We're here at Metropolis Studios in London, and Mike is going to give us a tour of the mastering department. So let's have a look.
So this is Reg, and it is Stuart Hawkes' room. This is one of the two rooms of the lathe.
What does the gas do?
It keeps the stylus cold.
Okay.
It also provides suction, which keeps the lacquer in place. So as the turntable's spinning, you need the lacquer to be very steady. So you have suction pulling that down. You also have suction pulling what we call the swarf.
What's cut away?
Exactly.
Okay.
That is all part of the lathe. So that's what you've got is cutting amps themselves. This is kind of feedback processing, so you can monitor what's going on. And at the top, you've got acceleration limiters, which are similar to DS's.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun, and that's the computer, an analog computer, which controls the whole thing.
An analog computer.
Yeah. And that's a really, really good one. It's definitely the best in this country. It's one of the best in the world.
And it never needs updates.
It's analog. We've had it modified so that it can run at half speed. So we can do half speed cutting, which is quite a cool thing. In fact, both of our lathes have been modified for half speed cutting.
Oh, that's where you push the sample rate and then get the
Yeah,
higher
so you
resolution.
double the sample rate, but play it at half, which gives you, it moves a lot of the frequencies around. It's a bit weird. It doesn't always make things sound better.
Okay.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So every room is done out with PMC speakers. We have Metropolis has a long-standing relationship with PMC. So they're all PMC BB5 XPDs, except one room which has got MB1 XPDs.
And why would you choose different speakers for mastering than, let's say, for mixing? Is it because you need all...
You need a much bigger, fuller frequency. The speakers are all tuned specifically to the rooms as well, so we've spent, these rooms have cost an absolute fortune just for the space. And then, beyond that, it just needs to be as flat and honest as possible.
Did you ever look at it, room measurements?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
How flat is the waterfall? Like,
The waterfall is impressive, it really is. And just the frequency plot on it is incredible, We spent a lot of time getting these, and we have PMC come out and visit us regularly just to take more further measurements and check that the speakers are working the same as they were last year.
I always wondered, in mastering rooms, people seem to care about the desk reflections most of the time.
Yes, there's a lot people care about.
Why isn't that in mixing?
I guess it's just impossible to avoid in mixing. I know a lot of mix engineers who do care about desk reflections, but you can't avoid having a big desk. I guess you can now, but it's no fun if you do. And the other thing of note in this room is Analog Tube AT101, which is built by one of our in-house engineers. It's an exact replica of a Fairchild. No one does replicas as close as this. And the guy who builds them is, as I say, one of our in-house techs.
How many tubes are in there?
Oh, you'd have to ask Simon. It's easily double figures, like 20 something, plus about probably a dozen transformers.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a tube power supply.
Okay. Power supply as well.
Yeah, everything is an exact replica of the Fairchild 660. So this is Bern. Bern has a view of an old working men's club, and therefore I think it's to do with Bernard Manning. As I say, they're all crazy names. This is primarily Matt Colton's room, and like the previous room, also comes with a lathe.
I see He doesn't like near fields.
He does not like near fields, no. He's got a Sonos system in the bay off to the side.
Ah, okay, for like
So he
the
just...
user simulation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all he wants. All our converters are Prism, with the one exception. Matt actually has a Lavry Gold. This is Matt's own personal Lavry Gold. So, and you'll notice he still uses the Prism anyway.
And how is it with clocking? Is that an
Everything in this, so every engineer has a different take on clocking and how they like it. A lot of people like to clock off the Prism clock on the DA2 unit is the preferred method. Matt likes to use the Antelope, which is the Trinity clock here, which in turn is clocked off the 10M rubidium atomic clock. So it's 10 megahertz clocking, which is in a different room. Every room has an Antelope. Not all the engineers like to use it. It's got a different sound to the Prism clock.
Okay. I mean, to hear the differences in clocking, how trained have your ears to be like? Is it really like?
You could hear it, I think, in this room at least. You know, in one of these rooms where you're listening through huge PMCs in a tuned room, then I think you can hear it.
Is it more like frequency or is it 3D?
They're brighter through the Antelopes, I find. There's a consistency to the bottom end that the Prism gives. So, yeah, it's one of those things. They're not all. It's not a better, worse thing.
It's just
at that end
taste.
at that end of the market. You're just looking at different flavors. Every room has at least one, if not two, tape machines, ATR 102s. This is a stock ATR 102, so all standard electronics, transformer outputs. This is modified by the ATR service company and is the Transformerless. We have 5 of these, so one in every room, Transformerless mods. The Transformerless mod is lovely. It really opens up the sound. You get much more of the sound of the tape.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great thing. We also have on each model both a solid state and a tube amp. So we can switch between them and they run off different heads. So you've got a straight path to each.
Cool.
When we're doing direct from tape to vinyl, we'll use the Studer tape machine, which is just outside, because it's got playback heads that are timed differently, so you get the delay.
Okay. And you need the delay for
for the analog computer. The analog computer needs a preview signal.
Like the look ahead for the.
Yeah, exactly. So it needs to be 900 milliseconds ahead for 33 1/3 records and half that for 45s.
To catch anything that would make the needle jump.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. And to allow it plans how much space to leave between the grooves. Okay, so this is the Studer A80 that we'll use for direct from tape to vinyl. The advantage of this is you've got 2 playback heads. So you've got a preview playback head and what we call the modulation playback head. And they're separate in time. And then you've got all of these little rollers. And so you can wrap the tape around a different length of roller to guarantee different delay times between the 2 playback heads. So, and there's a little document here, so you can see there, it says use those 2 those 2 rollers for 33, use that one for 45, and there's even different markings for 33 at 30 IPS, 33 at 15 IPS. So you might throw that one in if you want to go 30 IPS to get the extra space, so that the delay time remains at 900 milliseconds.
Because I always thought, like, I don't know where I read something about like the delay is done digitally, so most vinyl is actually converted.
No, that's not what we do here.
Okay.
This room is called Woody.
Woody.
And is occupied by myself and Felix Davis.
Since this is your room, do you want to explain your chain, or do you want to do it downstairs?
I think if we talk downstairs, because it's a much more interesting chain. It's a more interesting. So this is
more interesting.
Yeah. So this is a Maselec console. We have Maselec consoles in 3 of the rooms, we have a custom Metropolis console in Matt's room, which we'll be replacing soon. And then downstairs we have a SPL console, which is really interesting and I'd quite like in every room.
The SPL?
Yeah.
Is it 120 volts?
Oh, I don't care about that stuff. It is, but that's
Really,
not,
you don't care?
it is, but it's not why I care. It does some really cool things.
Like from routing
of
and-
routing stuff. Yeah. So this is a fixed routing. You know, that is always the first insert, which is the MMC2. The Sontec is always the second insert, and you can't change them.
Okay.
And so this is really not how I like to work, because I don't have an EQ at the end of the chain, and I want one. On the SPL, you turn them on in the order that you want them to be positioned.
Oh, okay.
So you can change it every time you use it.
So it's got like a big switching matrix with
Yeah.
lots of, what are they called? The
Relays. Yeah. It's very clever. Yeah. Of interest in this room is this bit of kit here, which is custom Metropolis EQ. So you have
It was built for Metropolis?
built for Metropolis by Metropolis.
Ah, okay.
So this, and this are all based on an old Neumann cutting transfer EQ, but heavily upgraded.
Okay.
And
In terms of?
all of the best parts. So everything is the best at the time of that they were made. The best available capacitors, the best available everything.
Okay. Still half the transformers, or?
I don't know, honestly, but I do know what's the word for kind of the tracking between the twos in stereo.
The matching.
The tolerance.
Tolerance,
The
yeah.
tolerance is much closer on these than you'll ever find on a Neumann.
Really?
Yeah.
And
just
the Neumanns
because-
are really close because
Yeah.
I serviced one. And
Yeah, but these were built by John Goldstraw, and he's just picky about that kind of stuff. So, and then these are based on Decca filters. So you've got high and low shelves, and they are absolutely stunning. Just really lovely shelves.
How many of these exist?
So I've got these, and Matt has a pair of these, and I think that's it.
Okay, that's quite a close circle.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not many.
Very nice.
So, as I say, this room's a mess, but it's interesting. So this is Arlo, the archive room. In this room we have, is this Windows XP? That's not even the oldest system. Down here I have Windows 98.
Really?
Yep, running Sadie versions 3 and Sadie versions 4.
Do you still have the discs for Windows installation?
Yes, we have everything.
How many are they? Like 24 or something?
Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I'd have to look.
I remember.
We've got old SCSI drives. So we've got 24-track tape machine, another two-track tape machine.
And these old computers are like to open old projects?
To open old projects, exactly. Yeah. So we have everything we can think of in terms of old software, old hardware styles, so analog styles, but also digital. So we've got DAT, I've got 2 DAT machines. I've got mini disc. I've got Sony F8, F1, F8. I can't even remember. On Betamax, U-matic machine down here. So I find none of the tapes work for anymore.
Okay.
And they're digital tapes, but they still need baking. And they're in big plastic cartridges so you got to bake them at a really low temperature because
For example, can you explain what baking is and does?
So anything that comes in on tape, so whether that's analog tape or digital tape as it happens, the tape will absorb moisture just from the air over 20, 30 years, however old the tape is, and that will make the materials on the tape start to shed. And as they run past the playback head, they will leave this kind of black
Residue.
goo
Okay.
on the playback head, which is bad for the playback head, but also bad for the tape because it's falling apart. So what we do is we have 2 ovens downstairs where we will bake the tapes for 8 hours at about 50 degrees centigrade.
And you go by weight or just by
We have
feeling?
we have a system. It's based on size of tape and things like that. But
Makes sense.
yeah, it's about 6 to 8 hours usually.
And how often do you have to bake tape?
Well, we usually try and get if we're going to do it off tape, try and do it to the closest time as possible to when we're going to actually
Use it.
So we'll try and get it done overnight, the day before we're going to use the tape, and then it's impossible to know how long it'll last. It might last, might last a week, sounding really good, or it might last another year or so. But each time you bake the tape, because you can bake them multiple times, but each time you bake it, the tape gets ever so slightly shorter. And so the music
shrinks?
Yeah, it shrinks.
So it gets faster?
Gets ever so slightly faster every single time.
When tape deteriorates, you say, how can you tell how does the sound change? Do you lose high end, low end?
You lose a lot of high end really quickly.
So it gets dull.
It gets really dark and dull sounding. But yeah, you'll see it on the tape head. You'll see the black goo on the tape head starting to come off. So that's when you know, stop immediately what you're doing. Clean everything and get it baked. So this room is called Dick. I don't know why. And it's mostly occupied by Tony Cousins and Andy Hippie Baldwin. So this is based on an SPL console that I think I was telling you about upstairs. The lovely thing for me about the SPL is, as well as being able to order your plugins by the order you push them, so that's now my chain, and I can store it like that. I can save presets, and I can put any one of these plugins, I'm calling them plugins, any one of these processors into Parallel, and then assign it with one of these 2 parallel knobs.
For each?
So I can put 2 processors in parallel.
Okay. And when would you do that? Like for compression or?
Compression is the most obvious one. A bit of parallel compression can be really nice. I actually have found with the tube EQs that you can get some really nice sounds if you hammer the top end, and then put it in parallel and just blend it in. It's different to just adding a tiny amount of it.
Makes sense. Okay.
You get a kind of subtle harmonic distortion, phase distortion thing going on that can be really nice.
So all of these nice pieces of equipment, you can say, I want to start here, go there,
exactly. So
have this at 50%.
And because of the way we've wired it up, we can actually put any of them in mid-side mode. So I press the new button, the first button, A, goes into this, which is the MMC, which the output of which is a mid-side matrix. So anything I put after this is in mid-side, so I might choose to put tube EQs in mid-side. I then go back into this to go back to stereo, and then I'll have my solid state EQs and a compressor. And that might be my chain.
Okay. And would it be like a typical chain?
That's fairly typical. I guess I'm probably more likely to put the solid state than the tubes in mid-side on average, and I like to end with either the tube EQs or sometimes the Shadow Hills.
Ooh, I did not see it at first.
Yeah, so but each engineer has a very different take on what the chain should be. So, my average chain and say Tony Cousins' average chain will be very different.
And how do you like this one?
Merely as a box for putting stuff through, it's fantastic. It just, you don't even need to engage the compressors, and you're getting some sound off it. You've got 3 different transformers, so for different amounts of harmonic distortion, coloration really. And then you've got two separate compressor stages, an optical compressor and a what it calls discrete kind of VCA style compressor.
It goes really fast, right?
It goes really fast. The VCA one goes quite fast. The optical one tends to be quite slow. They pair up really nicely because you can use the faster one to catch transients and the slower one to just kind of average out your levels.
I mean, it's just for the knob, so.
It's a beautiful bit of kit. We tend to find a lot of material that comes in these days doesn't need much actual compression.
Because people compress too much?
People are heavily compressing in the mix. And so a lot of the time we'll just be going to compressors like that, even like the Fairchild that we have upstairs, just for coloration. And if you see the needle moving, you've probably gone too far.
So did things change with like streaming services and the loudness normalization stuff?
It's changing, I would say, with loudness normalization.
You don't have to push that much, or is it?
We'd like to not be able to have to push too much. You still get clients who want things louder than everything else, and the client's always right.
Okay. And are they aware that on Spotify or something it's
yeah,
really like?
A lot of them are. A lot of them know what's going on, and they just want it the way they want it.
It's their music, right?
It's their music. We're there to be the experts that they can talk to. We can offer advice, suggestions, but at the end of the day, they've got to be happy with what comes out.
How is it actually with I often hear that like for mixing engineers, it's very important to get feedback from the mastering engineer, like maybe you did something here. Does this ever go the other way? Like, do you ever send out the master and then the mixing guy calls and says, you do to the bass drum? Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll often, the best relationships are always the ones where it's a good, strong communication between both parties. And I've got mix engineers that I've given lots of feedback to over the years, and they'll keep coming back to me because they know I helped them get where they are, in a sense. And equally, there are mix engineers who will come back after I've done a master and like, love X, Y, and Z about it, but A, B, and C maybe need to change. So we'll just get that done for them. That's not a problem.
When you get a mix, can you like instantly tell that this should have been fixed in the mix, or is it like?
Oh yeah. There's lots of things I will, and sometimes we'll contact them and we'll just say, I can do this, but if you de-ess the vocal a bit first, I won't need to. And then if I'm not de-essing the vocal, we're not also pulling a bit of top out of the snare.
How long does it take you, like, for, say, a track? On average?
On average, I'd say a track takes half an hour.
Half an hour?
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite fast.
I'd say I'm probably one of the slower people here.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's mastering, so we've only got 2 channels to work with, and a lot of what comes in, we get mixes sent in by incredible mix engineers.
So you just like.
So we don't need to do anything. I've seen a lot of mixes where it's been passed through the board, perhaps it's gone through maybe the Shadow Hills, but you look at what the settings are and it's no compression on the Shadow Hills, no EQ, and then 2 dBs of limiting. You're like, yeah, well, it did sound fantastic to start with, so let's not ruin it. And equally, you'll get mixes that'll come in and you'll listen to it and you'll be like, cool, this is gonna take a while. Okay, let's dig in. But you work with what's available.
Do clients show up for sessions, or is it mostly like we send stuff?
Mostly it's stuff just sent over the internet, but I welcome clients coming in as often as possible. It makes things a lot easier if they're there. Kind of, you can say, I like this. What do you think? And if you're heading in the wrong direction for their song, they can tell you right straight away, rather than kind of sending them a file back and them going, no, that's not what I was thinking at all. It just makes communication much easier. And
do they often say, like, I guess it's a new experience for many of them to have such a listening environment? So it's
absolutely. Very few people have been somewhere like this, and very few people will have listened on speakers that are larger than them.
Including me.
One of my favourite tricks actually is to be listening on the near fields as they walk in.
What are those?
So these are KLK 6000s, which are Tony Cousins' favourites.
It's That's the housing.
Yeah. So you play it on those as they're walking in because they're probably better than what they're used to listening to things on.
How low do they go?
I don't know with the KLKs, they're pretty low. But then, so you get them listening, they come in, they're listening to that, and they're like, yeah, this is nice. It's roughly similar to whatever near fields they've got at home. And then you just switch to the mains, and they're like, wow. Like, oh yeah, I was just checking something. So when we're checking stuff on headphones, having the Phonitor is really nice because you can check. One of the issues when you're listening to headphones is the isolation between the two sides. Means things sound like they're coming from over there and not in front of you.
Yep.
What the Phonitor allows you to do is change that angle, to introduce a little bit of crossfeed between the two sides, and everything just starts to picture in front of you again. So this is a really nice bit of kit. You can change the angle, the amount. Yeah, it's really nice.
Do you know how it works? Does it just narrow the field? Or is it like...
Well, it narrows the field by introducing crossfade. So that's, and I don't know if it uses clever delay tricks as well. I wouldn't have thought so.
How long did it take you to be like confident in your level of expertise and your hearing and all this stuff?
How long did it take me to be confident? Not very long. How long should it have taken me to be confident? A lot longer.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm getting there. I'd like to think I'm still learning, and hopefully in 20 years I'll still be learning. Thank you very much. Cheers.
See you. Goodbye.